I wouldn't like to try. I found this button from your tunic in the American lady's compartment.
I have lost no button, mademoiselle. There must be some mistake.
Then perhaps it was dropped by the man she said was in her room.
There was no one there. The lady must have imagined it.
I need to ask you some questions about Monsieur Ratchet's death.
But of course, Mademoiselle Marso, I will do anything I can to help.
When was the body discovered?
The valet of Monsieur Rachet, he tapped several times at the door this morning. There was no answer. Then, half an hour ago, Lucien, the waiter, came. He wanted to know if Monsieur was taking déjeuner. It was 11 o'clock, you comprehend.
Continue.
I opened the door for him with my pass key. But there is a chain, too, and that is fastened. There is no answer, and it is very still in there, and so cold. The window open, I borrow the engineer's hammer and break the chain and go in. Monsieur Rachet was... it was terrible. The chain was fastened. It must have been suicide?
I'm sorry, Michel. A person does not commit suicide by stabbing himself 12 times.
No, I suppose not.
Did anyone call for you last night after we spoke?
Yes, I made up the bed of the young American gentleman, Mr. Rachet's secretary.
At what time?
It must have been about a half hour later.
1:45.
About that, yes. The English colonel from number 15 was with him. The colonel went back to his own compartment as I prepared the American gentleman's bed.
Did you see anyone moving about last night after we spoke?
The English colonel returned to his compartment. No one after that.
Did you leave the car at any time last night after Belgrade?
Well, I did go back to talk to Matteo, the attendant in the Athens-Paris car.
When was that?
Not long after 1.
How long were you gone?
A few minutes only. One of my bells rang. You remember, it was the American lady. She had rung several times. I hope the investigation will be concluded successfully and soon. There is nothing more I can tell you.
You presume that this would be the choice of Poirot? I think not.
That doesn't make sense. I enjoy winter, but only when I can look out at it from the comfort of a room with a fire crackling in the fireplace. The weather looks quite threatening. I enjoy winter, but I won't find anything. I'll take that key, Mr. Hardman. If you don't give it to me, I can have a couple of the train's staff take it from you.
I'd like to see them try.
Would you really? Pierre Michel's passport. And an old photograph. I'll just borrow both of them. Nothing else to see in there. What were you doing going through Michel's belongings?
Your job?
You know I'm assisting Monsieur Poirot.
Sure. Begin the interrogation.
What is your profession?
I'm a salesman. Typewriting ribbons.
Do you always travel first class, Monsieur Hartman?
Sure. The firm pays my traveling expenses.
Where is your destination?
Paris.
And from there?
New York.
May I have your passport, please?
It's in my room. 16. Help yourself.
What can you tell me about the murder?
Nothing at all.
That is a pity. What were you doing outside Monsieur Ratchet's window?
Okay, there were footprints there. Man's shoe, but not a large one. Size 7, maybe. I followed the tracks, then it looked like whoever made them put on some snowshoes and headed out over that deep snow near the back of the train.
Perhaps, Monsieur Hartman, you could tell me why I found a blackjack, or sap, as I believe it's called, in your suitcase?
How do you know what it's called?
Crime is a hobby of mine.
Yeah? Well, why don't you try knitting instead? You people are serious about this investigation, aren't you?
Of course. You have heard of Monsieur Poirot?
Yeah, I have. I think I better come clean, or I could find myself in a lot of hot water here.
I would advise you to come clean.
Okay, I don't know anything, like I said. But I ought to know something. That's what makes me sore. I ought to. My passport's a bit of a bluff. That's who I really am.
Please explain.
I showed up at the appointed time. Ratchet put me wise to the situation.
What situation?
He showed me a couple of letters he got. Threatening letters.
Did he have any idea who the letters were from?
Well, Ratchet described him to me.
What?
Sure. Said he was a small man. Dark, with a kind of womanish voice.
What instructions did he give you?
I was to travel by the same train he did to Paris and see that nobody got him. That's the thing. I did travel by the same train, and in spite of me, somebody did get him. I feel sore about that. Doesn't look any too good for me.
Did Monsieur Ratchet seem alarmed by the letters?
Pretended not to be, but he was rattled all right.
Did Monsieur Ratchet not tell you the man's name?
Nope.
Ratchet was Cassetti, the Armstrong murderer.
No kidding. Should have recognized him. I mean, I suppose I saw photos of him in the papers and everything. Well, that explains it. Cassetti made a lot of enemies in the American underworld. He often skipped when the heat was on, leaving his partners in crime to face the music. Some assassin finally caught up with him. Say, I've really fallen down on this thing. And with a famous detective like Mr. Poirot on the case, too. This won't do my rep any good with my boss, Mr. McNeil, if it gets back to him.
I'm in the same predicament, Monsieur Hartman, believe me.
You are? Well, that's good. I mean, bad for you, but... Say, listen. If we could keep the mess I've made out of this thing between ourselves...
I must tell Monsieur Poirot everything.
Oh, sure. I'll have to swallow my professional pride there, but if we can keep it on this side of the Atlantic, maybe, I'd really appreciate it.
I'll see what I can do. Please tell me your movements after dinner last night.
I played some cards with that Italian guy at the front on the coach. Then when people started turning in, I went back to my room. Stayed up all night, had my door a bit ajar so I could keep watch. But nobody could see me. You get it?
I understand how it is done, yes. Do you know anyone connected with the Armstrong case who matches the description Monsieur Ratchet gave you?
Well, that's hard to say. They're mostly dead, aren't they?
Yes, Mrs. Armstrong, Colonel Armstrong, the nursemaid who threw herself out a window.
I remember now. The nursemaid was suspected. She killed herself even though she was eventually cleared.
Are you all right?
Yeah, I'm okay. Snow is very bright. So, yeah, that nursemaid was a foreigner, I think. Maybe she had some foreign relations or something. But that wasn't the first time Cassetti had run that kidnapping stunt. I bet there are lots of people had it in for him.
Do you smoke, Monsieur Hartman?
Sure. I've got some cigarettes in my room. Come on by this evening after things quiet down. I can be far more entertaining than that mouse of a woman in your room.
No, thank you. Did you see anyone moving up and down the passage?
Nope.
Could you see the attendant from that position?
Sure. He sits on that little seat right past my room.
Can you describe his movements?
Let's see. He answered a couple of bells after the snow stopped us. Went back into the rear coach for 10 minutes or so. Then there was a bell ringing like mad, and he came running back. I got a bit nervous over that, but it was just that talkative American dame raising hell about something or other. Bit later, he headed off to make somebody's bed up. Then he settled in.
Is there anyone on the train who can confirm your identity?
My credentials are taped to the bottom of the table in my compartment, along with my real passport. I'm sure you can find them.
Thank you, Monsieur Hartman.
Not now, Miss Marceau. I have some serious thinking to do.
Nothing else to see. I have nothing more to say to him. Do you have a plan to the Athens-Paris coach?
Sí, señorita.
Which rooms are occupied in this car?
The Greek doctor is the only passenger. He is in room 13. I have taken room 15 there to sleep in, and room 16 for my equipment. I hope it is all right. Pierre Michel is using room 11, the chef de cuisine is in 9, Lucien the waiter is in 1-2, the engineer is resting in 10 when not attending to the boiler, the fireman rests in 3-4.
What equipment?
I am a ham radio operator. Usually I carry the equipment in the baggage car. There is no time to use it when I'm on duty, and anyway, no power. But when we were stopped so suddenly, I thought to check it and found my telegraph key destroyed. I don't understand it. It was packed carefully. I brought the rest here to my room to keep it safe.
Did anyone pass between this car and the Calais coach last night?
Only Pierre. He came through and we talked for a few minutes about the snow and what it will do to the schedule.
When was this?
Sometime after 1 a.m. A few minutes only. We talked for 10 minutes or so. Then Michel fancied he heard a bell. He opened the doors between the two coaches and we both heard it plainly. A bell, ringing repeatedly. Michel ran to answer it.
You boarded the train in Belgrade?
Sí, señorita.
Why were you so late? Your passenger must have boarded by himself, and you yourself almost missed the train.
But this is not so. I was preparing my car as it was being attached. I myself welcomed the Greek doctor and showed him to compartment 13.
That will be all.
Could we speak later, señorita?
Monsieur Foscarelli.
Ah, signorina! I have been told you aid the great Hercule Poirot in his investigations. I will help you in any way I can.
May I have your passport, please?
Of course, of course! Here you are!
You are Antonio Foscarelli. I see here you are a naturalized American citizen.
Yes, signorina. It is better for my business. I am, as you can see, a salesman of motor cars. I do big business. I am up to date. I understand salesmanship.
What do you smoke? A pipe, cigarettes, cigars?
Cigarettes only.
You travel frequently to and from the United States?
Yes, for the past 10 years or so.
Did you ever come across Monsieur Ratchet?
Never, but I know the type. Oh, yes. It is very respectable, very well dressed, but underneath it is all wrong. I should say he was a big crook. I give you my opinion for what it is worth.
Your opinion is quite right. Monsieur Ratchet was Cassetti, the kidnapper.
What did I tell you? I have learned to read the face. It is necessary. Only in America do they teach you the proper way to sell.
Please tell me your movements last night after dinner.
With pleasure. I stay here in the salon car for a while. It is more amusing. I play cards with the American gentleman who sells the typewriter ribbons. We talk shop. Afterwards, we retire to my compartment and play the cards some more. And talk more shop. That one, though, he is not the salesman Foscarelli is, I can tell you.
Do you remember the Armstrong case?
I do not quite remember, but yes. The name, it was a little girl, was it not? A baby, una bambina.
Yes.
Ah, well, these things, they happen, even in a great country like America.
Have you ever come across any members of the Armstrong family?
It is difficult to say. I see so many people, you understand. I'll give you some figures. Last year alone, I sold...
Please, monsieur, confine yourself to the point.
With a great pleasure.
What time did you go to your compartment?
Oh, it was early. 8:30 or so.
What time did you stop playing cards in your room?
Not yet 10 o'clock. That stuffed shirt of a valet who shares the compartment with me came back from attending his master. A miserable people, the English. Not sympathetic. He sits in the corner, very stiff, reading a book. Mr. Hardman and I, we lose our taste for the cards, and Mr. Hardman, he goes off to his own room. The attendant makes up our beds.
What time did you go to bed?
I lay on my bunk for a while. The Englishman has, I think, the toothache. He gets out a little bottle of stuff that smells very strong. He moans and groans. I drop off around 10:30. Whenever I wake, I hear him groaning.
Do you know if Monsieur Masterman left the room at all during the night?
I do not think so. If the door opened, the light from the corridor, one wakes up automatically thinking it is the customs examination at some frontier.
Did Monsieur Masterman ever speak of his master?
I tell you, he did not speak, even to introduce himself. He was not as sympathetic, a fish.
Good day, Monsieur.
Signorina, may I beg a few moments to myself?
Oui, mademoiselle. You will find it in room 1-2 in the Athens-Paris coach.
What do you know of Klaus, the chef?
An artiste de la cuisine, and just as temperamental as a painter. Vous comprenez? No one is allowed to enter his kitchen.
His menu seems to overemphasize meat dishes.
It is true that. They call him Le Boucher, but not to his face, of course.
The butcher. It suits him. Did you see or hear anything unusual last night?
No, mademoiselle. The Athens-Paris coach was very quiet. And of course, the door leading to the Calais coach is locked. One can pass through only if Pierre Michel or Matteo opens it for him.
What can you tell me of your movements after dinner?
I came in here to attend to the bar after everyone went to their rooms. I cleaned the salon car and went to the Athens-Paris coach to rest.
What time was that?
I closed the bar at midnight, so it would be a few minutes after that.
Do you know Monsieur Ratchet was killed with a knife?
I had heard this, oui, but why? Do you think Klaus may have stabbed him?
A chef that temperamental? If someone was to criticize his masterpieces?
Mais non, mademoiselle. C'est très absurd. Klaus would not stab anyone. Not with a knife. He would hack them into little medallions with his cleaver.
What do you know of Klaus's movements last night?
As usual, he stayed in his precious kitchen, preparing his pastries and sauces for the next day's meals. He passed through the salon car a few minutes before midnight in a rage because one of the steak knives is missing. Passengers will take anything as a souvenir if it is not bolted down. Why, the things that have gone missing on this trip would astound you.
But perhaps they were not all taken as souvenirs. Perhaps some person, in order to do good, borrowed them?
Mademoiselle, forgive me, but I do not understand what you are talking about.
Let it pass. What did Klaus do after he entered the salon car?
Nothing. We went together to the Athens-Paris coach.
Klaus seems even more temperamental than usual today.
I fear an approaching catastrophe, mademoiselle.
Worse than avalanches and murder?
Certainement. Special dinner menus, as you no doubt know, are printed in advance of our departure in Istanbul. Here is tonight's menu. As you can see, tonight is to serve Wiener Schnitzel and Eldafe Salat, native dishes of Austria, in honor of the Count and Countess Andreni.
Veal and potatoes. Why does this not surprise me?
But so many have asked for the salads, almost in defiance of Chef Klaus, and the porters have failed to put aboard enough vinegar and olive oil for the Eldafe Salat. Klaus is in a rage. The embarrassments will be too much for him.
That will be enough.
Excuse me, please, mademoiselle. I will be happy to talk to you in a little while. I beg you.
Those cabinets are locked. Those cabinets are locked. Count Andrigny, I am acting on behalf of Monsieur Hercule Poirot in this matter. May I speak with you?
I quite understand your position. I will do anything I can to assist you.
May I have your passport, please?
Yes, certainly.
Rudolph Joseph Andrigny, aged 34. A diplomatic passport.
Yes, I am in the Hungarian consular service.
Wife, Elena Maria Andrigny. Age 20?
Yes, we have only been married a year.
Aged 20, thank you. Are you aware of the identity of the deceased, monsieur?
If you want to know his name, surely it is in his passport.
The name on his passport is Ratchet. That is not his real name. He is in fact Cassetti, who was responsible for the kidnapping and death of a child in America.
Ah, that certainly should throw light upon the matter.
Have you been to America, Monsieur Leconte?
Yes, I was in Washington for a year. Extraordinary country.
Did you know the Armstrong family?
The kidnapped victims?
Yes.
Armstrong. It is difficult to recall. So many diplomatic functions. So many hands to shake. I cannot recall. I'm sorry.
Can you tell me how you spent the evening after dinner last night?
We had my wife's compartment made up while we were at dinner. On returning, we sat up in mine playing piquet. At about 11 o'clock, my wife retired for the night. The attendant made up my compartment, and I also went to bed.
The sudden stop of the train awakened you?
Naturally. I learned from the attendant of the avalanche, then went in to my wife and comforted her.
When did you return to your own compartment?
Well, I didn't, actually. That is to say, I did not like to leave my wife alone after the shock. We passed the remainder of the night together.
Other than the train stopping, did you notice anything unusual?
No, I don't think so. I dropped off to sleep sometime before 2 a.m. and slept through until this morning.
You didn't hear the commotion in the compartment next to yours? The American lady who occupies it had quite an attack of hysterics and rang repeatedly for the attendant.
When was this?
At approximately 1:15.
No, I'm afraid I didn't notice.
Do you smoke, Monsieur Lecomte?
The occasional cigar only. They are always offered to me, you understand, but I do not much like them.
That will do for now, Count Endraigny. Countess, may I ask you some questions?
I'm not sure what I can do to help, but I'll try.
Have you been to America?
No, mademoiselle. My husband was posted there. Diplomatic duties. But we were not married then.
What is the color of your dressing gown?
Why do you ask me that?
Detectives have to ask all sorts of questions. Forgive me.
It is yellow. Corn-colored chiffon. Are you really a detective, mademoiselle? I was told you worked for the railway.
Well, I'm assisting a detective. That's what I meant.
Is he a Yugoslavian detective?
I think he would tell you he belongs to the world, madame. When did you fall asleep last night?
Soon after 1 o'clock, I believe.
Did you hear or see anything unusual last evening?
After the train stopped?
Yes.
No, I don't think so.
You didn't hear Mrs. Hubbard ringing her bell and calling out at around 1:15?
No, it would be very unlikely if I did. I'm sorry.
That will do for now, Countess.
I will talk to you.
Does nothing strike you as odd about what you are doing? Mille pardons, mademoiselle.
Something is wrong here. This doesn't seem to work. I'm sorry to disturb you.
Not at all. As you can see, I'm not exactly occupied at the moment. And I do know you're helping that funny little Belgian detective. What can I do for you?
May I have your passport, please?
It's in my compartment. Feel free to collect it.
Your full name, permanent address, and age, please.
Mary Hermione Debenham, 32. I'm between permanent addresses at the moment.
What can you tell me of the murder last night?
I'm afraid I have nothing to tell you. I went to bed and slept.
You seem very at ease. Are you not distressed by what has happened?
Distressed? I have not really thought about it from that point.
They die, yes, but murder is thankfully a little more rare. Were you acquainted with Monsieur Ratchet?
I saw him for the first time at dinner last night. Oh, I suppose at the station, perhaps. I don't recall.
How did he strike you?
I hardly noticed him.
He did not strike you as an evil personality?
Really, I cannot say I thought about it. Whether or not I liked Mr. Ratchet's face does not seem to be helpful in finding out who killed him.
Do you know who Monsieur Ratchet really was?
Haven't a clue. Who was he?
Cassetti, the man behind the Armstrong kidnapping.
That was quite abominable.
Where did you begin your journey?
Baghdad.
What were you doing there?
I have been acting as governess to 2 children.
What is your final destination?
London. I'm giving up on Baghdad. Not much happens there. I'm hoping to find a suitable post in London.
What can you tell me about Mademoiselle Schmidt?
She's a nearly perfect traveling companion. Quiet, polite, thinks the world of her princess.
What is the color of her dressing gown?
Her dressing gown? It's dark blue. Flannel.
Did Mademoiselle Schmidt leave your compartment at any time during the night?
She was with the princess, reading, I believe, until quite late. I awoke when she returned. I remember thinking she was not paid enough for such long hours and checked my watch. It was 12:38.
How well do you know Colonel Arbuthnot?
That's a very impertinent question, and I'll not answer it.
Au revoir, Mademoiselle Debenham.
Ms. Marso, would you...
What they say about the chef is true. This buffet is a carnival's dream. These menu cards are perfect for collecting fingerprints. Sterling silver, of course. Sterling silver, of course. Very appetizing in other circumstances, but I'm not hungry at the moment. Monsieur Klaus, I understand you need olive oil and vinegar for tonight's meal.
Yeah, the food porters in Istanbul did not load enough. I am ashamed if I cannot prepare the promised Wiener Schnitzel and Erdapfel salad for the Count and Countess Andreni.
How rude! Monsieur Klaus, I understand you need olive oil and vinegar for tonight's meal.
Yeah.
Intolerable. The key worked.
Quite interesting. Quite interesting. Quite interesting.
I won't do that.
Quite interesting.
Well, what do we have here? Oh my! Just what is all this for? It's a makeshift bed, but who could possibly be using it? It's a makeshift bed. It's a makeshift bed. It looks like someone had a meal here recently. Crime et punition, géographie européenne, introduction à la science. Interesting selection.
Quite interesting. Quite interesting.
I'd better put the lid back on for appearances. I think I heard a click. It's open. It's locked fast. I'll put this into my scrapbook so I can take a closer look at it later. It's locked fast. I won't do that.
The good detective knows even the most useful tools have the proper time. Oh, mademoiselle, you...
I'd like to talk to you again, if you don't mind. I'd like to take your fingerprints.
How very enterprising of you. How do we proceed?
I have some typewriter ribbon.
Splendid. This is all rather exciting.
Au revoir, Mademoiselle Debenham. I'd like to... May I take your fingerprints?
Yes.
Good day to you, Madame. You did not expect to see me again so soon, did you? I'd like to take your fingerprints.
Whatever you need to do, I will be happy to cooperate.
That will do for now, Count Endraigny. Hello, I'm afraid I'm back again. I would like to take your fingerprints.
I see. Very well then.
Au revoir, monsieur. You did not expect to see me again. I would like to take your fingerprints.
Of course, of course. Anything to help.
Thank you. Good day, monsieur.
Yes, miss?
Monsieur Masterman?
Yes.
My name is Antoinette Marceau. I'm assisting Monsieur Poirot in his inquiries.
Yes, the attendant has explained that to me. The service is quite good, I must say. I prize good service highly, of course. My compliments.
Thank you. I would like to ask you some questions.
Yes, I expect you would. I shall help in any way I can.
You are the valet of Monsieur Ratchet.
Yes,
May I have your passport, please?
of course. Here you are.
Your full name, age, and address.
Edward Henry Masterman, 51. 21 Friar Street, Clerkenwell.
When did you last see Monsieur Ratchet?
It must have been about 9:35 or 9:40 last night, miss.
I'd like to take your fingerprints.
That's a rather messy procedure, isn't it? Do you have something I might wipe my hands on afterwards?
Yes, I do.
Napkins? A wet cloth was beyond your capabilities? Well, I suppose they will have to do.
Thank you. Can you tell me what happened when you saw Monsieur Ratchet?
I went into Mr. Ratchet as usual, miss, and attended to his wants.
What were your duties exactly?
To fold or hang up his clothes, miss. Put his dental plate in water and see that he had everything he needed.
Was his manner the same as usual?
Well, miss, I think he was upset.
In what way upset?
Over our letter he'd been reading. He asked me if it was I who had put it in his compartment. Of course, I told him I hadn't done any such thing, but he swore at me and found fault with everything I did.
Did your master ever take a sleeping draught?
Always when traveling by train, miss. He said he couldn't sleep otherwise. Even the express affected him, I am sorry to say.
Did he take it last night?
I poured it into a glass and put it on the table for him, though I didn't actually see him drink it.
Was Monsieur Ratchet an early riser?
It depended, miss, upon his mood. Sometimes he'd get up for breakfast. Sometimes he wouldn't get up till just on lunchtime. I would wait until the attendant came to collect me.
When was his usual bedtime, when aboard the train?
Midnight, miss, or later. With the avalanche last night, I fancy he wouldn't fall asleep until closer to 1.
Did you mix his usual dose of the sleeping draught?
A half dose only, miss, at Mr. Ratchett's request. I can't say the reason.
What happened next?
I asked him if there was anything else he required. He asked me to send for Mr. McQueen. Then I left him.
Do you know what drug he was in the habit of taking?
I couldn't say I'm sure, miss. There's no name on the bottle. Just sleeping draught. And to be taken at bedtime.
Was it unusual for him to swear at you?
Oh no, miss. He lost his temper easily. It just depended what had happened to upset him.
Did you know that your master had enemies?
Yes, miss. I had heard him discussing some disquieting letters with Mr. McQueen.
How long have you been with Monsieur Ratchett?
Just over 9 months, miss. Before that, I was with Sir Henry Tomlinson in Grosvenor Square. I was with him for several years before he left for East Africa.
Do you know of any bad blood between your master and Monsieur McQueen?
No, no, miss. Mr. McQueen was a very pleasant gentleman. For an American.
Did you like your employer, Masterman?
I should hardly like to say that, miss. He was a generous employer.
But you didn't like him.
Shall we put it that I don't care very much for Americans, miss?
Are you a pipe smoker?
No, miss. I only smoke cigarettes. Gaspers, miss.
What did you do after leaving your master?
I told Mr. McQueen, miss, that the master wanted him. Then I came along here to my compartment and read. I was in bed by 10:30.
Have you ever been in America?
No, miss.
Do you remember the Armstrong kidnapping case?
Well, yes, I remember reading something about it. A little baby girl, wasn't it? Very shocking affair. But what has that...
Your employer, Monsieur Ratchett, was the man behind the kidnapping.
I'm at a loss for words, miss. I can hardly believe it.
Who do you share this room with?
A big Italian fellow.
Does he speak English?
A kind of English, miss. He's been in America. Chicago, I understand. He was in here playing cards with another American, a Mr. Hardman. The game broke up soon after I entered, and Mr. Hardman left.
Do you and the Italian gentleman talk together much?
No, miss. I prefer to read. At present, I'm quite enjoying Love's Captive by a Mrs. Arabella Richardson. At about 10:30, the Italian fellow wanted to go to bed, so the attendant came in and made the beds up.
Did you go to bed then?
I went to bed, but I didn't sleep, miss. I had a toothache.
You did not sleep at all?
I finally dropped off about 4 this morning.
I am so sorry. Was your toothache painful?
Most painful, miss. I applied some oil of cloves which relieved the pain a little, but I still was not able to get to sleep. I turned the light on over my berth and continued to read, to take my mind off of it, as it were.
Did you hear anything during the night?
I don't think so, miss. The train being at a standstill made it all very quiet.
Did you leave the compartment at all?
No, miss.
Did your companion leave the compartment at all during the night?
No, miss.
Did the Italian gentleman sleep?
Him? Oh, he snored. I confess I envied Mr. Ratchett his sleeping draught, miss.
Au revoir, monsieur.
I'm sorry, miss. I'm quite tired due to my lack of sleep. I'm not up to more conversation at the moment.
Regardez, mademoiselle.
I've already searched it thoroughly.
Et voilà.
I won't find anything else in there.
I've told you all I know, miss.